In today's episode, don't lie to the residents. No. We don't have cocktails. Force me to come in with a highly infectious disease to sign paperwork, okay? So let's get started. Don't lie to the residents. Was reminded of this little occurrence from a few years back today, thought I'd share it. Don't know if it's malicious in the traditional sense, but I did follow instructions to the letter and embarrassed the one giving instructions, so I dunno. Tell me what you think. So, about 3 years ago I worked for a care home. I still do work for a care home, but I also did 3 years ago. It's primarily nursing care with a little dementia care. The residents can range from being totally independent and capable of going about their day with minimal assistance from staff, to end-of-life care with checks every half hour to make sure there's always someone with them. The particular resident I'm going to be talking about here, we'll call Dot, because she looked like the EastEnders character of the same name, only with a thick Liverpudlian accent. Dot had a great sense of pride, and a low tolerance for anyone who she believed was talking down to her. She was largely independent, just had a few funny turns here and there. I was working a night shift when this happened, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and it was round about midnight. My colleague was setting up breakfast trays for the morning, I believe, whilst the nurse was doing a few clerical duties. We had a nurse from an agency due to ours being ill. Agency workers can be a mixed bag here. Some are lovely, hardworking and understanding. Some are grumpy and uptight. Some, we politely ask if they don't get sent again. The nurse that night fell squarely into the middle category. She would be snippy with the care staff, opting to do her work without any communication to us unless it was absolutely necessary to hand anything over to us. Fair enough, nobody says you have to make friends here, and would treat the residents with a false smile and a semi-condescending tone, sort of like you'd expect one to use when talking to small children. Dot was going through one of her funny turns. She had put her coat on, and was trying to barge her way out of the front door. I came across the reception area to find the nurse trying to talk to Dot, with Dot trying to get to the front door saying "Get out of the way, you miserable old trout," to the nurse. The nurse was saying things like "I'm sorry, Mrs. Dot, but we need to look after you here. It would be irresponsible of us to allow you to wander about outside at this time. You could seriously hurt yourself. Look, it's dark out." All things that seemed to make Dot angrier and angrier. After a while, Dot stormed off. I asked the nurse why Dot wanted to get out the home. Because she has dementia. Yes, but why in her own mind is she trying to leave? In her mind, it makes perfect sense for her to leave the home. What's her reasoning? Oh, she wants to go to the pharmacy. What difference does that make? We can't allow the residents out unsupervised for any reason, and especially not in the dead of night. I'll talk to her. No, you will not. I know how people like you work. You'll say anything to keep the residents happy, even if it means filling their heads with lies. Well, I was taught that we have to be honest with the residents. And this is true, you can't tell a resident an outright lie. At least not where I work. If a resident with dementia is distraught because their mother hasn't given them a phone call, you cannot say to them something like "Oh, but she did ring you about a couple of hours ago, remember?" However, it's kind of frowned upon to say something like "Your mother died 20 years ago." Dead people can't use the telephone instead, honest as it may be. You have to learn to use tact, omit details if they could cause distress, and treat the residents with some modicum of dignity. Anyway, somehow I convinced the nurse to let me speak to Dot. The nurse said that if she sees me lie to Dot, she will file a report, and see that the home manager knows I am institutionalizing the residents, which is a very, very serious accusation here. We made our way to Dot's room. She is angrily stuffing things into her handbag at the time. The nurse folded her arms and stood in the doorway as I spoke to Dot. Dot. What do you want, my name? What are you getting all dressed up for? Is something special happening? I need to get to the pharmacy. They have my medicine. But it's Sunday. The pharmacy isn't open on Sunday. Stopped in her tracks. For the first time, she looked confused rather than angry. Is it? Yes. Look. Here's your clock. It says today's date on it, and it says Sunday, see? Made a sheepish face to this. Oh. Oops. I suppose I'd better get settled. I do actually feel rather sleepy. I left to it. When I walk out the door, the nurse is stunned that I handled it so easily. She tried to sputter out that it was still filling the resident's head with lies for the sake of a quiet life. I just asked her, what day is it right now, and she didn't have an answer. The nurse tried to speak to my colleague about my behavior later that night. My colleague basically told her that what I did was the same thing she would have done. When had her funny turns, she would argue with you about the time of day, how safe it was outside, etc. But as you got to know the residents, you got to know what kind of advice they'd be willing to listen to. Anyway, there's the time an angry resident calmed down and a grouchy nurse got egg on her face. Hope you enjoyed. No. We don't have cocktails. I just read a story here that reminded me of one of my own. It's nothing big, but I hope you guys enjoy. Some years ago, hubby and I moved to another country where culturally, service is not a priority, very different from where I come from. We barely arrived and decided to celebrate by going out for a nice meal to a restaurant recommended by a friend. We'd been forewarned that the service standard was crap in general, so we came with a low bar. The meal was nice, the service okay, low expectations prevent disappointment, and the conversation really good. We were excited about our new adventure and happy to finally be there. So we decided to follow the meal up with a cocktail since the restaurant had a fully stocked bar in full view. We called the server over to order and the conversation went something like this. Husband, hi. We'd like to order some drinks, please. Server, okay, sure, what would you like? Husband, pour me a glass of red wine, please. Server, okay. And for you, miss? Me, I'd like a gin and tonic, please. Server, no. We don't have cocktails. Me, what do you mean? You have a fully stocked bar. Seriously, this was a big, very complete bar. Server, we don't have cocktails. Me, flabbergasted, but you have everything you need to make them, right? Server, I wouldn't know. We don't have cocktails. At this point, I sit back in my chair while my brain tries to process the situation, then promptly sit back up, an MC light bulb going on in my brain. Me, okay, do you have gin? Server, yes. Me, do you have tonic water? Server, yes. Me, perfect, then please bring me a glass of straight gin, a glass filled with ice, and a can of tonic water. Server, okay. I seriously don't know what they expected to happen, but they bring everything over, and then I proceed to mix my own drink at the table while making eye contact with a big grin on my face. And since the glasses were highballs, I actually got a double. It was hilarious to see the server huffing away. Force me to come in with a highly infectious disease to sign paperwork, okay. This story is pre-COVID and took place in 2013 when I went on a long and much-needed vacation. I managed to pick up a virulent disease. Initially we thought I just had a cold, then the flu, eventually as we flew back to the States and taking handfuls of anti-inflammatory meds to keep me breathing we thought it was pneumonia or bronchitis. As soon as we arrived and got through customs my parents were waiting, and it was straight to the emergency room. There they gave me a deep swab and a doctor came in wearing a mask and face shield. They told me I had whooping cough. Apparently my TDAP vaccinations failed to produce a proper immune response and herd immunity had protected me until that point. My family in the waiting room who had taken me said another group of people in gear came in, and they sterilized the seat I'd been sitting in and every area I had gone through or touched. So I followed procedure and emailed my boss and let him know that I was very ill and what I had and wouldn't be coming in the next day. My boss forwarded the email to our human resources department, and they contacted me saying that I needed to come in to fill out the FMLA paperwork and to bring a doctor's note. I asked if it was okay to just email them the forms and they said, no, the forms had to be filed out in person. The HR rep was quite insistent on this. Cue malicious compliance. So the next day I dragged myself in, coughing, ill and virulent to the office. My boss and director were both there, and they were horrified to see me and both wanted to know why I was there. I explained that HR demanded I come in, and that I had a 9 a.m. appointment with them. Needless to say, they were not pleased and our office manager began lysoling everything, including me. My meeting got moved up to 8:05, and while I was meeting with the HR representative to get my benefits in order, they were meeting with the HR director to sort things out and express their irritation with HR's face-to-face requirement. I finished shortly after and went home. Their meeting lasted a bit longer. The end result was that everyone in HR and my department got nasal swabs, and the office was shut down for a week for cleaning and a test period. We also got a new office policy that if you are sick with a deadly and highly infectious disease, you must email the documents in and can sign from home rather than having to show up. I was told that I wasn't in trouble as I obeyed company policy and did exactly as instructed. Edited to add. No one at work got sick. A few weeks later we figured out where I got it from. The night before I left on the trip, I went to a karaoke bar. My friend's aunt and parents were there. Her aunt is an anti-vaxxer from a different state. We were all sharing food and the karaoke controller. 3 of the 20 of us got sick. My vaccine completely failed me, one had minor cold-like symptoms, and the third thought she had a mild flu. My friend's mother had to fly out to California as the aunt was hospitalized because of pertussis, and they thought she was going to die. She made it, however, but has greatly reduced lung capacity. I didn't make it out unscathed, and have extensive lung scarring from being sick without treatment for nearly 3 weeks. Update 2. Day 0, infected at karaoke bar. Week 1 in Philippines, slight coughing but figured it was just a cold or the air. Week 2 in Japan, more of the same, coughing got a bit worse so I bought some cough medicine, started to feel a bit off. Week 3 in China, flying into Beijing, the absolutely awful air made it worse overnight. Figured that the air pollution had given me an infection. By the time I realized it was something other than a simple cold, I was in China, and after having spent a couple days there I didn't trust the quality of care I would get. I couldn't communicate with anyone stateside as they had Skype, Gmail, and everything else blocked on their internet. I had gone through China once before and missed a connecting flight due to delays. I got on the next flight, but it caused me to overextend my transit visa by 4 hours. Despite the assurance the airline gave me, I was put in a holding cell in Kunming for 3 hours and had to pay a cash fine. It was only on my last 2 days in country that I found out about using VPNs to bypass the strict security, which was illegal anyway, and arranged for my parents to take me to the hospital as soon as I got home. Day 22, got back to US, saw doctor. Before they'd even done the test, he said it was whooping cough, as the whoop of trying to breathe between coughing was obvious. Week 4, begun treatment. Life was awful. The sheer amount of coughing was making me vomit. Very weak. Week 5, coughing improves, put on drugs to help with the pain as it felt like my chest and gut had been beaten, every muscle hurt, brings belief. Week 6, still coughing, but improving, can finally sleep through the night for the first time since week 4. Week 7, improving, but barely able to get out of bed, pain had begun to diminish. Week 8, went back to work part-time, still felt weak and needed a cane to walk. Week 10, could walk without a cane. Week 12, still coughed, but it was more psychological than physical. Back to full-time work. Week 13, put on antidepressants and antipsychotics as the steroids and antibiotics had affected my brain chemistry/caused neuro issues. Month 6, stopped coughing. Was back to 95% health. Weaned off meds. Month 7, tested for immune response to other diseases. Month 8, follow-up CT scan showed scarring throughout lungs. The doctor said I had scarring on 10 to 20% of my lungs. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.